Good afternoon, members, and to the public here in the gallery, and to the viewing public in our social media platform. The chair will now call this second day first regular session to order. Let us please rise for a moment of silence. Thank you, members. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Fadda,
Gaya.
Representative Fato,
Present.
Representative Faudon, Representative Aquino,
Present.
Senator Babauta, Representative Benavente,
Yeah.
Representative Camacho Angelo, Representative Camacho Diego,
Here.
Representative Camacho Joel,
Yeah.
Senator Castro,
It's the gap.
Representative Flores Joseph,
Present.
Representative Flores Marisa,
Present.
Senator Magofnia,
Present.
Representative Manglonia,
Present.
Representative Omar, Representative Palacios,
Yeah.
Representative Murangamar,
Present.
Chairman Sablan,
Estiga.
Representative Villa Gomez,
Present.
Representative Yangtamay,
Yeah.
Representative Yumu. Mr. Chairman, we have 18 members present and 3 members absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 18 members present, we have duly established a quorum. Please take note that Representative Angelo Camacho, Representative Malcolm Omar, and Representative Ralph Yuma are hereby excused. Thank you, members. Moving along, we are now on item B, reading and approval of the journal, and at this time, I recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hereby move to adopt SNILD Journal number 24-01, first day, first regular organizational session dated March 17th, 2025. So move.
There is a motion offered by our floor leader for the adoption of SNILD Journal number 24-01. It has been seconded. Discussion on the motion. Ready? All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion adopted. Moving along, we are now on item C, public comments, and at this time, the podium is open for any of our members of the public that wishes to make comments. Please state your name for the record. Seeing that there is no public comments, we now move further down in our order of business. There happens to be none on item D, introduction of local bills. None on item E, introduction of local resolutions. We are now on item F, messages from the governor. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, we have 5 messages from the governor. Governor's communication 2401 through 2405.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Discussion on the messages from the governor. Ready? At this time, under item F, I recognize the floor leader for the proper motion to dissolve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hereby move to dissolve into committee of the whole. So move.
There is a motion offered by our floor leader to dissolve in committee as a whole, and it has been seconded. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion adopted. At this time, I ask the Sergeant at Arms to please escort the governor's representative and Mr. Henry Hofschneider. And under committee as a whole, I recognize the floor leader to take control. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon, Hafaday, Zantiro, Chairman John Paul P. Sablon, Vice Chair Selena R. Babauta, Floor Leader Joel C. Camacho, and honorable members of the Saipan and Northern Islands Legislative Delegations for the 24th Northern Marianas Commonwealth Legislature. For record purposes, my name is Jean Paul Benavente Regis, Acting Special Assistant for the administration under the office of the governor. On behalf of Governor Arnold I. Palacios and Lieutenant Governor David M. Apatang, I thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. Again, we apologize for the absence of Mr. Michael N. Evangelista. But anyways, referring to the governor's communication number 24-02 and 24-03 on today's agenda, I am pleased to introduce the governor and lieutenant governor's renomination of Mr. Michael N. Evangelista and Mr. Henry S. Offsnyder for the Commonwealth Zoning Board. An intellectual individual committed and dedicated to serving our great Commonwealth, Mr. Michael N. Evangelista is the current vice chair. He obtained his Juris Doctorate degree from the University of Idaho College of Law in 2005 and have served the Senate body as legislative assistant from 1996 to 2002. He then transitioned as a chief of staff and special assistant on public policy for the office of the Speaker of the House of Representatives for the 15th Sinai Legislature, then became the Assistant Attorney General for the Sinai Office of the Attorney General from 2007 to 2010, and then decided to be attorney in private practice from 2010 to present. For his part, Mr. Henry F. Hofsnyder is the current chairperson for the Commonwealth Zoning Board. He obtained his Bachelor's of Science on Criminology from California State University, achieved his way up as commissioner for the Marianas Public Lands Authority from 1995 to 2006 at that time, a special assistant for Department of Lands and Natural Resources from 2006 to 2009, and have been the special advisor for assistant to 3 distinguished Saipan mayors from 2010 to 2023. Presently, he is the special assistant to the Honorable Lieutenant Governor David M. Apatang. Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Apatang place their full trust and confidence on Mr. Evangelista and Mr. Hofsnyder to serve on the Sinai Zoning Board. I know they stand ready to answer your question and share their past experiences. Their dedication and commitment to serving the Commonwealth in this capacity makes them a viable candidate, and we kindly ask for your expeditious approval. Thank you, Jesus Moses and Giliso, for the opportunity to introduce them to this august body, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Regis. Mr. Hofsnyder, if you have any opening statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. I prepared a statement that I was going to read today. It's 6 pages long. But after talking to Senator Corina Magovnia about the bill that was just recently introduced 8 days ago, Senate Bill 24-23, I decided that my written statement should be kept in my files, not shared with the public. Because, and I did share this with her, that the tone of that bill was offensive. That's how I saw it. And most of the board members, not most, but all of the board members, and I'll name them all, that had chance to review Senate Bill 24-23, the Vice Chairperson, Michael Evangelista, Member Stephen Sablon, and who else was there? Ms. Charlotte Cepeda. 2 members were absent, but I believe they received copies of the bill. And we all came to the same conclusion about the bill. It painted a picture of the staff of the zoning board, whom I think some of you have not met, have not spoken with, have not sat down to hear from them. The zoning administrator, Ms. Teresa Gomero, who's been the zoning administrator for so long, she left for a little bit and then came back. And I don't know if any of you have sat down and spoken with the board members, but the conclusion we came after reading that bill was the staff and the board members were incompetent, that the board members didn't know what they were doing and are doing and where we're headed. And it's not a good thing because it's out there in the public and it lessens the confidence in the zoning. In zoning, I'm sure, and I do not doubt that a lot of members of the public now have doubts about zoning because of the things mentioned in that bill. I was going to call out a couple of members in this body to just try and answer some of the questions that were brought up during board meetings. And in those board meetings, we have public comments section, and a representative would walk up and I'll give the floor to that representative. But the only thing this representative repeats, time and again in our meetings, public hearings, where people are present, is the same thing. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know the law. The law is flawed. For 40 years or 39 years, the law has been in place. Public Law 6-32 or 39. Your predecessors, I'm pretty sure, knew what they were doing when they put together that bill. They debated on that bill. They had public hearings. And then they passed it. The governor signed it into law. To this day, it has been amended, I believe, 2 times. Not to kill that law or lessen its vigor, but it gave it more strength, more clarity. And 39 years later, this body, for some reason, because somebody's whispering in their ears that it's not working for me, it's anti-business, it's not business friendly, it's stifling the economy. I get calls after calls about zoning, that it's high time we induce a coma on that on zoning for 5 years. Put it off for 5 years. Abolish the board. Move the staff to the Department of Public Works. But, I hope enough thought went into that bill. The author is here. I mean, is that the best that could be done to fix? If there are complaints, and there are complaints about zoning, but I think it's not the law itself. It's everybody. I'll admit it. It's the staff, the board. But what about the public? Has the public even been asked? What is it that you want? When you walk into the zoning office, do you want an answer the minute before you leave in less than 5 minutes? Things do not work that way. Congressman, try and come in with suggestions to help zoning. We appreciate it. You can talk down to me, but not the staff, not the other board members. We haven't done anything to you. In fact, we support what you're doing, but when it gets to that point where it's intolerable to just listen someone tell you how stupid you are, how stupid the law is. We're not that Commonwealth. We're not that people here in the Marianas. If the governor and the lieutenant governor do not have confidence in me or in Mike or Member Sablan or Member Alinas or Member Itubus or Member Cepeda, then none of us would be here. Mr. Chairman, zoning is good And at the same time, most people think zoning is bad. It's just like in your home, your family, your household. Your wife can say this, but you might disagree. The plan is not good. The plan is good. But we all have to behave where we move things forward. We want to help the economy. Let's look at it from that angle. Let's not look at it from my angle, and I'm holding the axe. I'm going to chop its head off. You do that for 5 years, who's going to be watching? Who's going to be policing what happens out there? Someone, the following day when that law becomes effective, I bet you someone's going to put up a wrecking yard next to a daycare center, or maybe a bar or a cannabis retail right in your backyard, or a school, or maybe a dump next to the hospital. I mean, those are impossible things, but give it a try. Dare it. It may happen. Now that we're moving along, trying to fix things, put things in order, we're going to stop. We're going to stop that effort because it's a couple of, and I'm sorry to use this word, sewer rats whisper in our ear. I can't handle zoning. It's delaying my project. You know, zoning office is open 5 days a week from 7:30 to 4:30. The zoning administrator can stay back. We can come in on weekends to meet with you and your outside clients. We can make things happen. But when the law does not allow something to go forward, then we just gotta swallow it. The reality is, I'm inviting you. You all drive in nice cars. They're really they're still brand new because you got in this year. I believe this year, right? Each of you has a rented car. Drive around CK, drive around San Antonio, drive around Dandan, drive around Olyai, all the villages. Go inside the side streets and decide whether that's the kind of living conditions you want. Mr. Castro, you were a representative of Precinct 2. Let's do something. Allow zoning to help you, to help everybody. Allow DPW and DPS and fire department to have unimpeded access into the villages where they might one day need to be there in a second. Because honestly, right now, it's really bad in CK. For someone who wants to put up a signboard on a building, why is it so difficult to read the zoning law? It's easy to read. So if the zoning law provides for a 2-inch thickness board, and it has to be this, the letters have to be this height. If a lot of people have done it, why not this person who wants to put up a sign? Why should we exempt this person to just do whatever he wants? I mean, what are we trying to do? Just have our visitors look at our surroundings, our island, and say, wow, this is, messed up, but it's good. It's good picture taking. I'll take it back to my friends and my families and share with the pictures I've taken here in Saipan and just tell them, proceed at your own risk when you go there. Every time we have a good thing going, somebody smart, because he thinks he's really smart and he's the only person who has the answer, comes in and says, stop. This thing that's going is not really good. Let's go back. Let's allow everybody to just do whatever they want. I want to ask this body to just let me, this is what I have to say because I'm passionate about where I live. Landscape. Why do we have landscapes? Somebody criticized the staff during town hall meetings that, why do you have landscapes? Is landscape a bad thing? When you come to work, do you come in your pajamas or do you need to dress up? I mean, you can use a lot of examples to understand why landscape is important. You don't just put your trash out in front of your front door and hope that the mayor's office would come by and pick them up. It doesn't work that way. Why? Why do we have rules? You have rules in your house that you enforce yourself. Your kids go to school, they have rules in the classroom. Why not the general public? The zoning board will be coming in May. Hopefully, if I get in and Mr. Evangelista get back in, we'll be back in May in this room. And we've made this offer to the chairman, is going to be setting up that session. We're going to talk about zoning. We want to hear from you. We don't want to hear from you in a bill and more bills. That's not a very productive use of your time. I think the most productive use of your time is to sit down like in this setting and talk to us. The law can be amended. We can adjust the law to make it easier. But I'm going to ask all of you to think about balance. You know, it's useless to have laws and we take what you want and ignore what 40,000 people want out there. It's got to be something that everybody wants and everybody doesn't want. You know that balance, how to balance that, and we can do it. Mr. Chairman, I think I had more to say in my statement, but I truly appreciate your attention. If you want to support zoning, we're 100% ready to take it in. But when you come to zoning board meetings and public hearings, and you read a message from someone that doesn't like zoning, or maybe has had a few beers and just wants to laugh, and you read it and it's all negative, I mean, I hope you go home after that, after you leave the zoning board meeting. Some members come and show up at the zoning board meeting and public hearings, and the minute they finish talking, they split. Member Mike Evangelista mentioned it on record that you, as the representative of your people that you represent in your precincts, should stick around. Observe how the board conducts public meetings. Observe how the staff interacts with the applicants, how applicants interact with the board members and the staff, what process we go through before we decide on an application. So, Chairman, thank you. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Mr. Hofschneider. And before we open the floor for members to ask any questions, I'd like to recognize the presence of our zoning administrator who's in the back, Ms. Teresa Gomero. Thank you for your presence. Vice, you have a question? Would you like to
Yes,
start?
thank you, floor leader. Mr. Hofschneider, thank you for your extensive comments. I don't necessarily disagree with many of your statements. In fact, I agree with some of them. And I'm glad you brought up the issue because that was actually one of my questions with respect to Senate Bill 24-23 introduced by Senators Magofnia and Castro jointly to dissolve the zoning board and reorganize the Office of Zoning into Public Works. Zoning or land use planning is the ethical planning of natural resources such as land. How does zoning not encroach, based on your experience, and you've been a zoning board now for over a year at least, the issue that I have in particular, and I'm not going to talk on behalf of anybody else here, but the issue that I have is the regulations, not the law. In fact, some members want to abolish zoning, and I said, no, we need zoning. We just need to tweak the regulations. So it's in the regulations that I have an issue with. For example, on February 4th, 2025, I conducted a meeting with all the permitting agencies except for Building Safety Code, and all the SNILD members were invited to that meeting. Some did attend and some asked questions that they had, but particularly it was HPO, zoning, CRM, BECQ, Fish and Wildlife, because in order to stimulate the economy, we hear from many businesses who have expressed their frustration with the permitting agencies in general, not any specific particular agency. And it was to initiate that conversation among all permitting agencies, because what I have seen and observed is that agencies do not communicate with other agencies. So I'm glad that I instigated that, because now they're in the process of meeting regularly. They just had their first collaborative meeting on March 8th that I did not attend, to start making the permitting process more efficient. What are your thoughts? Well, you've already told us your thoughts, but what in particular do you not agree with in the proposed bill?
There's nothing in particular that I disagree with the proposed bill. I disagree with it entirely.
For what
And
reason?
it's not the copy that I got and read does not move zoning to DPW. When you suspend the zoning code and the zoning local laws, what are you going to implement? Who's going to, even if you have the Secretary of Public Works at gunpoint and say, go out there and regulate land use, who's going to ask? Using what? Senate Bill 24-23 kills everything for 5 years.
So the problem or the concern I have with is zoning office does not have any professionals, no engineers, no architects. Is the office at least collaborating with those who have professional staff on their roster, like Public Works? Because, excuse me, zoning office has been actively engaging the community and making them aware that they are going to start enforcing the blighted property law. And it's important, and I commend them for that. But those are grounds for appeal, sir, from a business. If the zoning office cites a business based on building safety codes, that is an appealable offense, because you do not have professional staff on your team. And as far as I know, you're not collaborating with those agencies who do have professional staff. Can you answer, can you elaborate on whether zoning does collaborate with professional agencies that have professionals on their roster?
I'm going to answer that in different ways or like this. I do not administer the office 8 hours a day. I'm a
Mm.
board member, so I would defer to the zoning administrator to answer whether that office collaborates or ask DPW engineers to look at plans or a building. I'll let her answer that.
Thank
The
you.
board can hire engineers to help the board in developing standards that will maybe include in a series of proposed amendments to the local law. The blighted and nuisance local law does not include the determination of a structure, whether it's sound.
But there's
or
some parts of your regulation that do.
it only provides for nuisance or blighted. And those two terms are defined in the act, in the local act. So if something is overgrown, if a building is overgrown with vegetation and you can barely see into it, the roof is gone or the roof is all torn apart and rusted. I mean, a reasonable person would say that's dangerous. It's about to fall. You don't need an engineer to tell you that that roof is going to fall. Even a kid can say, I don't want to go in there because that thing might fall on my head and kill me. Engineers can tell you maybe when they can fall,
Hmm.
how they can fall, the impact it's going to create when it falls. But the local law, the blighted and sort right across the street on Beach Road, everybody knows that's blighted. What's inside it, zoning does not go in there. It's DPW. I think it's the building safety can go in and inspect the building. The Department of Fire and Emergency Services can go in. Bureau of Public Health can go in and make that determination. But if you read the nuisance and blighted Act,
Putting that law aside,
you'll
there's
know that
some
it's
parts of the zoning regulation that talk about the structural integrity of a building. And
I'm
this is
not-
where my question comes in.
I haven't honestly. I don't know which part of the
I'll look it up and maybe we can have this conversation outside of the office because I'm not able to look it up right now. But I think as board members, you guys need to take a look at your regulations and see where duplicity exists. And perhaps maybe that will afford an investor or a business person ease of getting a permit. The other thing is, having been the former commissioner of MPLA before it was reorganized to DPL, what is your understanding of the master land use plan at DPL? And how does it relate to zoning decisions you make as a board member? Are you in conversations with DPL about the master land use plan?
again as a board member, I do not cross that. I let the administrator.
May I suggest then that the board inform the office staff to collaborate with that because that is what zoning is all about, land use planning. That's all I have for now. Oh, one last question. Why would you want to serve on a zoning board? What is your personal response? Why? We thank you for accepting this appointment, but I want to hear from you. Why do you want to serve?
The governor and lieutenant governor asked me, and after looking at what we have on the ground in your villages that you're supposed to be looking after, I think it it calls me. If I can just put in a positive note that can change where we're headed.
Based on your experiences with DPL or MPLA, what do you feel would be your contribution to this board?
Well, to make it easier for everybody, but not too easy for someone to just say, I want to do this. This is the material I want to use. I can do it because the law gives me that right, gives me permission. I want to build my septic tank over there. I think when we collaborate and work together and come up with a good set of enforceable regulations, I think it'll provide predictability for everyone. Someone growing up, person who wants to get married, start a family, and goes to the bank or gets lucky and gets a grant at Northern Marianas Housing Corporation to build a dream home. That I've helped in some way protect that upcoming new family, live peacefully, happily. They have yards for their kids to play in. They have walkable sidewalks. They can sleep at night because traffic is not just running all the time in front of their house or backyard. You all ran on something. And I think you and I are looking at the same thing. Thank you.
Floor Leader Ayo.
Thank you, Vice, and thank you, Mr. Hofnadder, for your responses. Before I recognize you, Rep. Odon, Senator Castro.
Welcome, Mr. Schneider. First of all, I just want to say thank you for your service. And I'm sorry you feel the way that you do. The law is in no way, I just want to make this clear. Nobody whispered in my ear about this. The whole concept behind why we decided to introduce that law. And by the way, it's not a law. It is a proposal. It will go through public hearings, and it will be further engaging with the community. It goes through the Senate committee. It'll go through the House committee till it becomes a finished product. But the bottom line here is, since we're talking about my precinct in Precinct 2 formally, there are several locals that moved back from the States and wanted to open up a business in Precinct 2. And they were denied because of zoning. Yet, another business with the same type of business activity opened right next door. So it's very disheartening to see the variance, especially when it comes to our local population. When you see a commercial building right on the border of someone's private residence and is given an okay, but then when a resident is going to build their fence, there's a problem. So this is not an attack necessarily on the zoning, it's an attack on the process. There's a process that we need to really take a look at, because the regulation is not matching the law and it's not aligned with the needs of the business community. This, and again, there's nobody whispering. I don't own massive assets anywhere. My property is my family property. My dad's really good about landscaping and cleaning. There's nobody that was whispering when this law. The people that are whispering are mostly our people and the business community that are trying to get started. And if you look at a lot of these, areas that are doing well economically, they've focused on looking at their regulations to make sure that you reduce the gap and it's aligned with the needs of the community. So, I'm sorry that, for the way that you feel that it's an attack on zoning, but this disconnect has been happening for years, and a majority of the population, we can even put this on a popular initiative if we want. But right now, times are hard, and at the same time, we got to make sure that we're protecting the values of our community. Property rights is really important. And it's unfair, for example, for a farmer to be farming in a specific area and later on to be zoned out of that area because a developer came in. So there's a lot of examples we can go into. But the bottom line here is this bill will, will go through the public process. It'll go through committee. It'll be refined. But ultimately, whether or not it's decided on, we have to do something because we're losing opportunity for economic activity, and at the same time, that economic activity is going to help our people. So again, thank you for your time. And if we're talking about sitting down and everything, we also have to be humble and be able to listen to some of the constituents, and not whether it's a resident or a business person, and try to meet halfway, not just like cite them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Just recently, the zoning staff, led by the art administrator, conducted a series of public outreach. I call them town hall meetings, or just public meetings. And I believe they had more than 10 meetings in the various villages. And, it's the same thing over and over. You've had maybe public meetings or hearings somewhere else. And when I was on the zoning board way back, we had a series of public hearings to get public input on the proposed zoning law or bill that we worked on and put together. But there were only a few people that came out. So, it's as representatives of your precincts, you hear your constituents. I think I've already accepted the chairman's invitation to come up in May. Come here, and we want to hear from you. Those two islanders that came back and wanted to open a business, I'd like to hear more details about what happened, what kind of business they wanted to open, where. Let's look at the zoning map, the zoning law. Again, to go back to your precinct, you don't represent that specifically now because you're a senator. And there's a place in CK where somebody's raising roosters, and there's like more than 100 roosters on a small lot. Then down the street, there's someone repairing small engines. Down the street, you could barely see the intersection. I don't know if it's not safe to turn until your car's halfway out on the street that you're trying to turn into. Single-family homes have been turned into barracks. We should be concerned because let's hope no, not, we're not waiting for a disaster to happen, but we can help put that village back into some order. Everybody, walks around. They can go to a mom and pop store down at the corner. Kids maybe can walk to school, walk home, and it's safe to walk. Right now, there's barely any walking space between structures that have been built all the way out to the property line and the road. If CUC and whoever has to go in and put in water lines or fix the sewer lines, they're going to have to be digging right in front of people's doorstep. But I thank you. I'm hoping and I'm looking forward to meeting with you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. And before I recognize Rep. Flores and then Rep. Aquino, I'd like to recognize Representative Odon.
Thank you, Vice Floor. So, we've been meeting a lot with your staff and the director for zoning, especially out in conducting the public hearing. And like Representative Manny said, we don't get whispers, we get complaints. And a perfect example is one business has their whole front window covered with advertisement, and this is this building and this is what services we provide. And so they got like all this graphic just covering the whole 100% of the window, right? And when you read your regulation, it does support that. But in another part of your regulation, it's saying it's not supporting it. So I have this other business that wants to come in and do the same thing, and he was denied. And then when I read further on your regulation, you encourage it because it reduces the sun glare that goes into the building, into that office, where it gets hot. And being, energy conservative, right, according to your regulation or to zoning regulation, that it reduces the heat inside the building. Therefore, they allow that. But when one building the other person that is trying to do the same thing, he was only allowed to do half of it. So how is it okay for one business to have it, to encourage, energy saving, right? And to make sure that the people inside the building is not being bombarded with sunlight. So they allowed to have all of this 100% covered, advertisement. You could still see it out. You can't see in, but you could see out. And the other company tries to do it, and he was denied because saying it wasn't in accordance with zoning regulation. And that's where I also have a concern. So it's okay for one business to do it, but it's not okay for the other, right? So that's one. The other thing is when a constituent comes in, right, and is trying to open a business, and zoning is requiring them to provide a layout of how the inside of their business is going to be. Is that zoning regulating inside the buildings now? On how your furniture, what kind of furniture, and how is it supposed to be laid out? I don't think zoning should be involved in any of that. Right? If you're going to tell me where I'm going to put my table and my desk, we're going to have issues. Right? But that's one of the things that they were asked by zoning staff to provide to get their permit. Right? Then another thing as well is, yards. Everybody loves a beautiful yard. Okay? But as somebody that deals with construction, right, you better be careful what kind of plants you plant next to your building, because I'll guarantee you this, when that root grows and it's not going to choose what direction it's going to go, it's going to go anywhere it wants to. Guess what it's going to do to your foundation? Guess what it's going to do to the sidewalk? And then now it becomes a public